of the Biden campaign leading up to his election, and it continues to be a top priority for many for his administration and leaders of his cabinet. When we think about infrastructure, and Todd, you said, what does this have to do with climate? Let me just, I think I shared this the last month when I was here, and it was reflected in the letter that I don't know if it went around. I hope it went around. It's a policy menu that lists in detail all of the different investments that could be made in the near term that would do two things. One, it would update our infrastructure, modernize our cities, our towns, our grids, our electric grids, our transportation systems, and serve as a down payment towards driving down climate pollution. Todd, did that letter and the policy menu get around?
Yes, the one we reviewed last week, yes.
Okay.
But I haven't sent it out today again, but I could put it in the chat if I could.
Yeah, it was a PDF where it had the list of policy menus that have been presented to Capitol Hill and the administration. And so the infrastructure package, we don't know what the details are going to be. We don't know if there's going to be specific things like a clean electricity standard folded into the infrastructure package. But what we do know is that this is a really, really important opportunity to make, again, to drive investments in precisely those systems and sectors of the economy that are, in some cases, the largest sources of climate pollution. And so as a community, it's a really important opportunity. And it's an important opportunity in two ways. And I do apologize if I start sounding like a broken record, but I guess repetition can be a good thing. One, it's an important opportunity because if this is a priority of the White House and it's a priority of Congress, then it behooves us to help move this along, because we don't get these opportunities very often, where we see momentum in Congress and momentum from the White House to move something that is that ambitious. The price tag is phenomenal. And there is already a lot of rumbling about whether this is too big, if it's too bold, if it's too expansive and too expensive. And so, you know, our job as advocates is to continue to push hard that we need something that's this big and this bold and this ambitious. And if it comes with that price tag, we know that the money will appear in order to pay for it, or they will come up with creative ways of finding new revenue streams. So from a policy standpoint, it's a really important opportunity. If we know there's going to be a key piece around transportation in this infrastructure package. Transportation is one of the largest sources of climate pollution. That's where the intersection is around what does this have to do with climate, to Todd's question. If there's a piece in there about modernizing the grid or looking at our transmission lines, what does that have to do with climate change? Well, right now, often where the wind blows is not where the people live. And we need transmission lines and we need an updated grid to move renewables from where they're being produced to where people live. So it can be bold, it can be transformative, and the vision is there. And so part of our job is to create the public momentum and public demand for something like this. Secretary Granholm in a meeting, maybe I told you this last time I was here. I don't know, the days are kind of blurring together. Secretary Granholm said in a meeting, we want this vision to be something that is so, what was the word she said? It's like, not just inspiring, but irresistible, that this is a future that's irresistible and everybody wants it. I want this in my town. I want this in my community. I want these benefits and this investment in my neighborhood. So I think policy-wise, that's where the intersection is.
That would be great. Felice, I think it'd be helpful if the groups, if somebody could put out a little piece, a couple page piece on these are the elements of the infrastructure piece that are going to benefit the climate movement. That would be a nice little handout for us to have And then not to rush you, but go ahead in the next two sections.
When do you want me to wrap up? By 1:15?
Ish, yeah, that'd be fine. No rush. I mean,
Okay.
rush, but no rush.
Okay.
We don't have a lot of action, so we're fine. We're fine on
Okay,
time.
let me just finish this part. And then why is it important from a political and a movement standpoint? Because we want to demonstrate two things. One is that we are united in terms of our call for action and our call for this bold investment. And that we will then we will empower lawmakers to continue to be increasingly ambitious. If we don't show up for this, or if we're quiet around this, the biggest thing that they're working on, they will wonder where the movement is. And so again, success begets success, and it's really important for us to help inspire our members of Congress to be part of this transformative opportunity. So what does that have to do with the recess? I'm talking really fast. April is it's the Easter recess, Passover recess. It's a 2-week period where members of Congress are home. I know that your adopted district program is going like gangbusters. It's really exciting. Congratulations to all of you that are part of that. And this is an opportunity to pay your members a visit. Ask them a question. How do you see this infrastructure package benefiting our community? And they might say, like, we don't know yet. Or you tell us, what do you think the community needs? Every member is going to want to see how this bill, this big infrastructure package, benefits their community. And this is an opportunity to touch base with them, introduce yourselves, ask them, because part of this period of time right now is a little bit of reconnaissance gathering. What are members of Congress concerned about? What investments are they hoping will be reflected in that bill? And then that information gets shared with the lobbyists, and we then help make sure that the bill is something that benefits all communities. Again, the biggest challenge we have is making sure that the bill speaks to rural America, urban America, coastal America, and inland America. It can't be something that excludes a huge sector of our economy or a sector of our population. And that's where this table that you've set or that you've gathered, Todd, is really important. So
thank you. And what are those 2 weeks? What are those dates, Felice?
It's March 29th through, starts March 29th, and then it's 2 weeks. And then it's pipelines. Yes, there's likely going to be a push to update pipelines. Well, you're talking about, I'm talking about distribution lines, distribution systems.
Just so you know, Felice, that's not me asking that question. Everybody's logged in with my registration today. So there's like,
okay.
So then the last piece you were going to talk about is EDF and your partners and
yeah. So the campaign, the climate action campaign, and working with the Coalition for Clean Energy and Healthy Communities, we've come up with basically a way to organize ourselves and think about this work in passing this ambitious infrastructure package in a really a 3-phase campaign. The campaign is the Act Now campaign. It has a longer tagline. I can circulate that afterwards. And there's really 3 phases of the campaign. First phase starts right now, and this is kind of the reconnaissance. Get to know your member, find out what they're concerned about. What are the things that they want to see in that bill, and making sure that they see that the things that they care about and are concerned about are going to be reflected in that bill. Remind them that you're there to support them and encourage them to be bold and to be part of this transformative opportunity. That stretch will be now until early May, early to mid-May. Then we anticipate the committees are going to start actually putting pen to paper and writing legislation. In some cases, bills have already been introduced They might get reintroduced. They might get tweaked. It's going to be expansive. It won't just be everything about climate. It will be, replacing lead service lines, which, God help us, should have been done decades ago, but still hasn't been done. So it is going to be expansive, but again, it's still going to be important. So this is also about, showing up for issues that might fall a little bit outside of climate, but again, is still about the environment and improving our public health and safety. So that's through May. Then we move into kind of go time. And this is about from basically May till late July, roughly. And in that period, members of Congress are going to want to hear and be reminded at home that that we have their back, and we think this is really important. This is about getting stories in the local paper. This is about submitting letters to the editor. This is about, if you know the local radio talk show person, get to know them and talk about why this is such a transformative investment and why Congress should prioritize this. And then there's a vote. Maybe there's a vote, and hopefully there's a vote at the end of July. And then members of Congress go home for a month. And then our work gets really serious. And this is our time where we call it about winning the win. I don't know if you've ever heard of winning the win. Winning the win means that that we got a big win under our belts. We got a bill passed. Hopefully, it gets to the president's desk. Members of Congress go home, and then they come home, and we welcome them with open arms and lots of praise, and public thanks, private thanks from all corners, businesses, health advocates, climate advocates, everybody in between, and that we continue to run that, what we would say, sort of, continue to reinforce and give them that positive cover all through the fall. If we do that and do it well, they will be more inclined to take the next vote on the next bill that will cross their desk. And if we do our jobs well, we will not lose the House in 2022. I can't stress enough how absolutely critical it is to give members of Congress the public support at home, because I guarantee you, when they go home in August and there's a $2 trillion bill passed, you watch the local TV stations, they will get hammered. And our job is to make sure that they are very, very well buffered by a really positive story.
All right, Felice, thank you so much. It's an interesting and exciting time that we're in. There's no doubt about it. One thing, Felice, maybe you could just speak to this, because we always talk straight about these things. We're looking at a 7-year window to of more pollution before we exceed the 1.5 limit. Between 1.5 and 2 degrees, there's multiple tipping points that you forecast catastrophe for humanity and the planet. So how can, and to give activists from 16 to 85 some peace of mind, how can we tell from all this activity that's happening that we're actually bending the curve on greenhouse gases? Where is the measurement for the reduction in greenhouse gases, and who's measuring that and keeping track of that, so that by the end of this Congress, we can say, okay, we've changed that trajectory, knowing that we don't know what happens after this window of opportunity. So, and then I guess I would just ask, and not to put you on the spot, because I just sent it to you earlier today, I think, or yesterday, but we have this idea of a mandates bill with specific mandates that would accelerate the timelines, give private sector markets all the assurances and confidence they need to forge ahead with massive private sector building and investment. The automobiles industry is already on board with this. I see that in your document, your letter, you reference 100% zero emission vehicles, and you say that EDF has other documents with positions on mandates. So it doesn't have to, I don't want to put you on the spot or EDF on the spot in particular today, maybe later. But so what is the deal? Are people just avoiding the mandates thing because they don't want the showdown fight with the fossil fuel companies, and which is understandable, but is that the answer? And if so, how do we know if what we're doing is actually going to save us?
Well, Everything we're doing is going to save us. So I firmly believe you take every opportunity that's presented to you.
Well, yeah.
So I would say if there is an opportunity to move something, even if it feels small, we lean in and we take advantage of that opportunity. Is there measuring the reductions? Absolutely. Rhodium spends a tremendous amount of time tracking, measuring, monitoring to see where we can make the biggest reductions. In mid-April, there's going to be the International Climate Summit. Every country has to present what are their national climate targets that they're setting. And the United States will be joining, obviously, lots of other countries. And those are based on modeling. Those are based on measurements. And so there's going to be very clear information about how do we avoid the climate, sort of climate disaster. We got to, drive down emissions. We got to drive down green, carbon emissions, and we got to drive down methane emissions. And so, but everything that we're going to do is going to make a difference. The reason why, when you talk about mandates, I think that there's a colleague once described it to me is that there's sort of two ways to go about it. One is you're trying to pull clean energy and clean transportation, clean manufacturing, clean buildings. You're trying to pull that into the market. And you do that by, tax incentives and rebates and investments like this infrastructure package. Then the other one is like pushing that. And the pushing comes from regulations and, legislative hammers that might be put into place. Regulations are going to be coming. There's no question the regulations are coming. We've got a great EPA. They're going to work really hard to get those rules in place. They're just not as durable. They're going to take multiple years, and you're going to have, but they're still incredibly important. So to your point, Todd, the community is talking about both, and we're trying to do both, right? We're trying to push the stuff into the market through regulations, and our best opportunity right there in the near term is through what EPA is planning, and then pulling clean energy and clean transportation, and really supercharging U.S. manufacturing by pulling it through this infrastructure bill.
All right. Well, I appreciate it. And I know we're in the crux of a complicated conversation, but to me, this is where it all just gets real clear. A clean energy standard kicks in. The utility companies have to send out procurements. The private sector kicks in and starts building. This is pulling. This is pulling by just telling, the source of our pollution that you have to stop buying dirty stuff and you start buying renewables. That clean energy standard or mandate, it seems like to me it's just it's obvious. And so if it's not being included, to me that feels like we're succumbing to the political resistance from the industry. And it would just be so satisfying to everyone to say, okay, yeah, we put the mandate in. Everybody could take a deep breath. All of us who are killing ourselves, scared to death, could take a deep breath if the movement started pushing just to have vehicle and utility and cement and steel mandates. The utility, these things could all fit into a reconciliation budget or infrastructure budget. So, all right, I'll stop lobbying you.
Well, I would say, so the good news is, if you think, and I can share this detail with you, there are many states that already have a renewable energy standard in place. Millions of people, 1 in 3 Americans is already getting energy from an electric utility company that's made a commitment to moving towards 100% clean energy. So that, the pivot is happening. It's maybe not happening as fast. I would just say, and Todd, you and I could just maybe disagree on this. I think walking around and talking about mandates doesn't always necessarily open doors. And so think about kind of, that might be something that we can talk about. And we talk about setting enforceable goals, enforceable standards. as a way to kind of make it very clear that this is really the goal that we have to work towards, that we have to achieve. I think that if we do a bang up job as a community between now and September, and we get a significant bill passed, which we haven't outside of the recovery bills, we'll have wind in our sails, and we can continue to advance really, really significant opportunities. And meanwhile, we have our work cut out for ourselves in pushing for all of the rule makings that EPA will be pushing, whether it's around cars, whether it's around methane. All of those things are going to be really, really important.
Do you think they're going to go forward and put greenhouse gases, carbon, all that, and the emissions under the Clean Air Act, under that definition? Are they going to forge that forward? Is everyone supporting that? Pollutants, however it goes, I don't know the details, but I saw a piece recently that there was a petition by Food and Water Watch and Center for Biological Diversity that was denied in the Trump last minutes and has been reversed, that denial, and so it's back on the table. That seems to be the regulatory fix, and it's just scary with a regulatory fix that in 4 years it'll be reversed, so it's not really strong comfort either to the market, which really is going to kick in and needs to have loans to build stuff.
You're absolutely right. And therefore that's exactly right. So that's why we are, as a community, we are really laser focused on this infrastructure bill, because in the infrastructure bill and in that policy menu, you'll see that there's, trying to really be more expansive around clean energy tax incentives and making sure that we have rebate programs and that we're driving, again, investments precisely to those industries and really, innovative technologies that's going to drive down emissions at a much faster clip. So could not agree with you more, Todd. We might just not use the term mandates that are embedded in the infrastructure bill, because politically that will just not help us keep the House. And I can't tell you guys, if we lose the House and we lose even more seats in the Senate, we're just, talk about scary. That's what makes me scared, Todd. Not whether we worry about like the nomenclature of some of the, language that we're trying to get inserted into the bill.
I hear you. And
as we get something to move. What's that?
The last thing I would just ask you, people are asking, we have of our districts adopted, a big chunk of them are in Republican districts. So if you could come forward with, if you could give us a PDF or a document with all the benefits of the infrastructure bill, or as you see them for the climate, that'll help us. But anything else that any words of encouragement to our folks who live in Republican districts? Because this infrastructure bill is that moment where we should be able to do this, but you know how it goes.
No, I think exactly. All politics are local. So I think, first order of business, I can definitely pull up, get you any information that we're pulling together about how this helps. So I'll tell you for EDF, we're looking at it a couple of different ways. One is the abandoned wells, also known as orphan wells. So these are abandoned oil and gas wells. They are littered across the country, many in Republican heavy districts. There's a lot of support on both sides of the aisle to get money into states and localities to plug those abandoned wells. Why is that important? Because they all leak methane emissions, which is a super pollutant. It drives warming at a much faster rate than carbon emissions. So that's one where there's a lot of support. And probably the one that's most in front of us. The other one is modernizing the grid and overhauling the transmission lines and transmission systems, making it more resilient to extreme weather. There's a lot of support for that. And again, there's not sufficient money being set aside. There's manufacturing. There's an incentive to jumpstart U.S. manufacturing. It's called a manufacturing tax incentive. The program is called 48C. It's kind of wonky. Senator Manchin and Senator Stabenow introduced it. It's a really important bill. Senator Daines actually also co-sponsored it. This was something that was introduced 10 years ago. It was so popular. There were more people applying for it, more companies applying for it than they had money for. So this is expanding a bill that would incentivize US manufacturing. A lot of support for that. So I shouldn't say a lot of support, but that's an opportunity where we have to begin to continue to build support. So lead with jobs, anything that generates jobs and that that helps generate good paying jobs and modernize our economies will be important.
All right. Well, this is wonderful. Thank you. It's so wonderful to be connected. We had this vision of, you know, opening up the conversation from the top to the grassroots, and you're just really generous and wonderful in sharing all this with us.
So I have an offer to make to you. So there's a lot of people on this call. I put in my email. If in advance of the next one, you know, you're all reading the stories that are going to be unfolding in your communities. You're going to see the stuff that crosses your Twitter and Facebook or whatever other feeds, news feeds, Yahoo news feeds. If there's things that come that you say, like, I would like Felice to think about these issues. I can't promise I have time to cover them all, but that can also be, that might be helpful. So share, you can either share them with me directly or share them with Todd and me, and then we'll kind of, I'll try to curate them and then be a bit more focused in my thoughts in a month, or be more explicit. But in the meantime, I'll get busy with these documents so you have something to go to your district meetings with.
All right. Well, that's wonderful. You know, we're starting to feel like a community all the way around. So welcome, everybody. Thank you, everyone.